Hey, how's everyone doing? Is this your first session? Second session? First session? No, like 2 people. It's my first session. We came here today to talk about this thing that has been a big topic today, algorithms and AI, and I want to welcome Dr. Joy and Kyle to talk to me. How's it going?
Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, I'm a little nervous, so I'm just gonna like take a breath. Okay. All right, those are really impressive bios. And I can hear myself echoing, which also makes me feel uncomfortable, but it's okay.
We got you.
Yeah, it's okay. We're gonna dive into like the science because this episode or this show is gonna be turned into an episode on shortwave. So we are gonna talk about science. But before we talk about science, I wanna talk about like your backgrounds, like how you got into this. You both have like a connection to art. So I wanted to talk to like Kyle first. You said that your first job was in China at an art magazine. Is that right?
Yeah.
Want to talk about that just a little bit? Like, what was that like?
It was really fascinating. I mean, I graduated from college in 2010, which was a legendarily bad time to try to find a job. And so the internship that I did find was with an art magazine editor in Beijing, where I had studied abroad. And I was really fascinated by Chinese contemporary art and just kind of the globalization of culture and this art world that stretched from New York to Beijing to everywhere on earth, really. And so editing at that magazine and translating reviews from Chinese into English and seeing the art world in China like taught me so much about how culture travels and how art spreads across the world and how ideas spread between people. And that was, I feel like I've been following that thread ever since in a way of like how culture travels and how people share ideas with each other.
And how it's like a really person thing, right? It's a really human thing, art. It's like, it invokes emotion. Would you say that like, did that start your thought into this thread? Like this very human emotion, this very human activity, you know?
I think so. I mean, art and all culture is person to person. It's about one person making something or a group of people making something and other people experiencing that same thing, whether it's like a painting or a book or a poem. And I think that, I mean, my book was trying to talk about how technology has changed that process. I think we experience a lot of mediation in culture now when we watch a TV show through Netflix or listen to a song through Spotify. Like, all of this digital technology has become a kind of filter in the title for how we discover culture and how we experience things from artists. And I kind of hope by the end of this book, it's kind of a quest to have a more direct experience of that art and culture, to like reclaim your own experience of that song or video or anything from the technological forces that we experience.
Yeah. And Dr. Joy, your mom was an artist. So like...
Still is, still alive.
Yes. Please forgive me, Dr. Joy's mother. But she's an artist, and so like you had this connection between like art and science, and you talk about being an artist and loving sports and how like these things aren't siloed. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, about your background, about like how do you kind of reconcile that for people and like tell people that these things are like all kind of related?
So I'm the daughter of an artist and a scientist. Oh, I'm hearing that echo now. All good. So for me, I grew up going to my dad's lab, feeding cancer cells, and then going to my mom's art studio. So it was literally in companionship for me. And it didn't get separated until I started going to school. I was like, oh, you got the arts kids here, and the science kids, and the tech kids, and the jocks. And I was all of these. And so it took me a while, actually, to really embrace art in my research. And it wasn't until I was working on an art project, just trying to express myself creatively at MIT, where I built an art installation. And part of that installation was meant to detect my face. And as you see on the cover, I had to put on a white mask to have my dark skin detected. And that's what this art project led to, the technical questions are machines as neutral as I had imagined them to be and also hoped them to be, right? We know humans are messy, but maybe there's some sanctuary with tech.
Did you have the fantasy like I was a kid? I was like, robots are perfect. I want to be a robot. That's just me?
Well, I loved watching a lot of PBS. I had a strict PBS diet, so
Okay.
Nova, Scientific American Frontier, and I remember one episode where there was a graduate student from MIT, and she was working on this social robot called Kismet.
Yeah.
And Kismet could smile. It had these ears that would wiggle at you. And it was a social robot
Yeah.
meant to create a connection. And that Cynthia Brazil was the maker of this made me think, oh, I could go to MIT. I didn't know there were requirements. I was just inspired by the TV
Yeah.
show, you know? Yeah.
No, I mean, let's actually get into that though. We're talking about these robots. This is what you kind of worked on before you did this project with facial recognition. Let's talk about all the way back, like, let's talk about algorithms. Let's actually have a definition. So like, talk to me like I'm on that like subreddit, like talk to me like I'm 5. Like, what is an algorithm?
To me, an algorithm is just a sequence of steps to achieve an outcome. So for me, I loved video games. I used to love playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Mine's like Donkey Kong Country. That was a beautiful game.
Right.
And played that in the 90s.
We could just do Tony Hawk and Donkey Kong for another half
Right.
hour.
We just talk about those two
Excellent
games
panel.
were really, really good. Anyway, continue.
Right. So you want a character to move left, you have this input, this action happens. And so that gets you that early introduction to what is our language to communicate with computers so that we can program them or shape them to help us express ourselves, solve problems, and so forth.
Yeah, and Kyle, you have like your whole first chapter is like going through like what is an algorithm, how long have they been in like history in human, civilization. So can you like add to maybe a different definition of algorithm?
Yeah, I mean, as Dr. Joy said, like in a literal sense, it's like an equation. So if you go back millennia, there are, I think it was like the Babylonian
Babylonians like
kingdom or something.
1800 BC.
Yeah, and there are equations for finding the volume of dirt that you dug out of a ditch, or how to split up, a crop, or share things between people. And so these were just basic equations, like step-by-step mathematical processes to find a result that was a desired result. And I think that it's funny because now when we talk about the algorithm or algorithms in general, it's a kind of boogeyman or like an omnipotent deity or something.
Yeah.
But so many of these experiences, whether it's like face detection or your recommendations in your Facebook feed, they do come back to these equations that are just taking in variables, on Facebook, things like likes or what you've clicked on before or what other people similar to you have clicked on. And they're crunching all of that data and then determining a result. And that's kind of what we're facing in technology.
That was my next question, like what algorithms the everyday life? You were talking about like, Facebook and, Instagram, but there's also, I remember reading that like a cooking recipe is an algorithm, right? Like, because it's directions on what to do and having an input and an output, right? So is there any, other than like the technology we talked about, any other kind of examples people can think about like algorithms in everyday life?
Well, I think about the algorithms they use in the healthcare system, right? Determining who has access. Triage can be an algorithm, and it might be one that you may or may not see. So even though the work that I do, a lot of people know is around facial recognition technologies, many of the algorithms that are shaping our lives are the ones you don't see, right? So the callback you never get because your resume is screened out by a hiring system.
I like that visual. Let's go from algorithms to artificial intelligence, AI. So how do we go from software like solving problems, calculations like Kyle talked about, to software that like thinks for itself? And Dr. Joy, I'm gonna let you break down like the difference between we're just talking about algorithms and now we're talking about AI.
Got it. And also thinks for itself is interesting.
Yeah. Well, we have it in quotes here because my boss was like, put it in quotes. Thinks for itself. We'll talk about hallucinations in a second.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when I think about AI, I approach it as this ongoing quest to give machines abilities we associate with intelligence or humans, right? So whether it's recognizing a face, a puppy, or making a prediction, are you going to pay back that loan? Are you going to be a good tenant? Are you going to be a good student? These are the types of applications we're seeing with AI. How I think about AI somewhat differently than some of the earlier algorithms you're talking about with these direct equations. Once you start trying to approach human kind of intelligence or problem solving, computer scientists like me, we quickly realize you're not going to be able to put out all of the instructions.
Right.
It's messy, it's complicated, there are always
time-consuming.
exceptions, right?
Yeah.
And so you see these earrings that I'm wearing, they're on the book, and they're actually a shape of a neural network. And so the neural network was this idea of, can we learn from the human brain, right? And maybe we can imitate the human brain, not making it conscious, but saying maybe we can create pattern recognition systems. So instead of having to code everything line by line, maybe instead we can present a data set of examples, so a data set of faces. That's how you would train a machine to learn, hence machine learning as a kind of flavor of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And so now you have these pattern recognition algorithms that are trained on a data set, and then it means the quality of that data set is going to determine the quality of your outputs.
Right. And can I say about your earrings real quick about where it came from? She made them from the image. She's like saw the image and then got them made, which I think is the coolest thing ever.
Yes, life imitating art.
Yes. But Kyle, you start your book, Filter World, with this like machine built in 1769, and it seems to think for itself, right? It seems to be AI, but there's like humans controlling it. Do you see AI as like the same thing, like that it runs itself, but it's dependent on like putting in parameters and conditions of the program?
Yeah, I think we overestimate that idea of artificial intelligence or of the algorithm. Like
Right.
we think of these technological forces as somehow beyond the human, out of people's control, kind of this ineffable thing. And that device that opens the book is called the Mechanical Turk.
It's a
And
cool image too.
Yeah, there's a nice
Please get the
etching.
book and look at the image.
So it was a machine that appeared to play chess. It was like a wooden cabinet with this automaton guy in a turban on top of it. And it appeared to move its arm and smoke a pipe and play chess. And it competed against really famous people. Like I think it beat Ben Franklin in a
loved
game
it,
of
I'm
chess.
sure.
But the problem was that inside this cabinet was not just a series of gears and levers, but a small man that was maneuvering magnet-controlled pieces under the board. And he had a little like lamp in there, and there was
Yeah.
like a hole in the back for
And
the
people
smoke
were
to
like,
go
why
out.
is there smoke coming out of this thing? It was from like the lamp.
Yeah, it was. So it was this illusion of an artificial intelligence, of a machine that could think for itself, which in reality was a little guy in a box. And I think that kind of became my metaphor for talking about algorithmic recommendations and some of machine learning, because we see it as this automated process, a machine, something that's not human, but it's really designed and updated and changed and driven by human engineers who are working at Silicon Valley technology companies. And I really wanted to get back to the source of these decisions that are made about how these things work, because they're not, I mean, in the context of recommendations, Spotify's main goal is not to give you the best music ever. Netflix is, that might be a surprise. But
I get the same 20 songs every single time I go to work. So.
yes, a terrible, terrible recommendation engine. But I wanted to point out that like there are human incentives behind how this technology works, and usually they're motivated toward profit, which online now is mostly in the form of advertising. So Spotify is not about you listening to great music, it's about you paying your subscription fee.
Right.
Netflix now, you can watch advertising on your streaming television, and that's what the content is shaped around.
Yeah.
Building on that a little bit with this notion of illusion, I think about animations. I love Finding Nemo, right? When you're watching
God.
Finding Nemo.
I love that part where his dad's like has to let go. It's the parents, anyway.
All good.
Yeah.
So when you're watching Finding Nemo or some other animation, you can get the storytelling that's happening, and you know that the animation is not real. You have insight into the illusion, even though you're experiencing it, right? You know that they're actors behind the voice. You know that they're a series of still images. So I think about this when people are interacting with, let's say, chatbots. Because we know how the human brain works, we can create these illusions that might make it feel like you're communicating with something that has agency, even though it is this illusion. But the illusion has power. In the beginning of Unmasking AI, I talk about a man from Belgium who was talking to a chatbot about climate change and actually ended up committing suicide. And his widow talks about how she thinks he would still be here if not for those interactions. So we can acknowledge the illusion that's happening while also understanding it can have really real consequences. That's why when you even said thinking,
Right.
I was really cautious about that, because what we believe about AI systems can be even more powerful than what they actually are.
Yeah. I mean, you had mentioned also about, this is from our previous conversation, but that you had this metaphor for AI through snowboarding. And like, does this go on this? You didn't tell me the metaphor, so I don't know where this is going, but is it?
Okay, I know which chapter this is. This is when I'm at Davos, and people are at Davos, World Economic Forum, networking, power brokers, all of this. But it happens to be my birthday, so I decide to go snowboarding, and no one's on the slopes at all. And I remember going down the bunny hill and feeling like I had chops, right? Like, I got this. And then we went a little higher, and I just found myself on a throne of ice over and over again, just kept falling down. And I thought about this overconfidence that we oftentimes see with AI. We're doing fine on the bunny slopes, and then you decide to use it in something high stakes like lethal autonomous weapons, right? Like you escalated quickly,
Wow.
So I think it's really important not to get overconfident when it comes to where we are with AI. So oftentimes you'll see the fun, cute demo. It was cute for 15 minutes. What does this look like 15 months from now?
Yeah. And Kyle, you were talking about just like kind of the darker side, just the capitalist side, of AI and these recommendations. And Dr. Joy, I'm going to get into your specifics, but is there anything else? I think you talk about in your book about people taking their lives too. It was a
sad theme.
Theme. But is there anything else that you kind of came across that surprised you that was, the darker side of these algorithms?
Yeah, I mean, I think your points about the illusion being just as impactful and influential as the reality or as how something actually works is really important, because we can be manipulated so easily by what these machines are doing to us or showing to us. So in my book, I also have this very tragic story where a young British woman was consuming a lot of content on social media about depression and self-harm. And there's this horrifying detail that Pinterest at one point sent her an automated recommendation email that just had many memes and images about self-harm in it. Like, the platform itself was serving more of this dangerous content because its only directive is to give you more, to drive more engagement to what you're engaging with. So there was no difference. It was not treating self-harm content with any distinction with like home decoration, which is just so wild to me. There's no protections put in place for this kind of content moderation, or at least in this example. And I think that force of acceleration or of serving you more of something that might be dangerous or manipulative to you exists like across all of these spaces. It's not just like, Netflix auto-playing the next movie or episode can get you to watch more TV, for sure. But I think there's also a point at which it distorts artists' creativity. Like I spoke to an illustrator friend of mine who had a lot of success on Instagram by posting this specific kind of like self-direction, like instructions to herself scrawled on pieces of construction paper. And that series was really successful for her and got her tons more followers. But then when she kind of got tired of it and moved away from it, her followers got angry at her because she was no longer serving that one niche that, the algorithm had sorted her into in that feed. And I think that's as a writer and author myself, I feel like that's such a dark side where it can drive people to consume art in a really shallow way. It can distort the work of creative people and kind of degrade creativity overall.
Yeah. And Dr. Joy, I want to get into kind of like unmasking a lot of the algorithms and what's happening into our software. Your work is focusing on this like facial recognition, but you kind of go even further, that it's not just like they can't see you, but you have this misgendering whole section, and you also have like people aren't seen by self-driving cars. They're being wrongfully arrested. Like, can you kind of go into those a little bit?
Okay, the doom section.
The doom section. We're ending on hope. We're ending on hope. I swear to God. I have a list.
Just so you know, I remember when I was working on my master's at the time, I came up with this notion of FML. Y'all know FML? Failed machine learning, failing freedom, money, love. And so on the freedom side, thinking about AI systems that were being used by law enforcement. And so you had people like Robert Williams, falsely arrested in front of his 2 daughters and his wife for supposedly stealing a watch. He was misidentified and actually just won us a $300,000 settlement, but took 4 years to get that. A few years after he was arrested, Portia Woodruff was arrested. She was 8 months pregnant, faulty facial recognition. Right, same police department. They also, they've arrested even more people, and they continue to use it. So that's what I'm thinking of FMLs and FMLs with the freedom. With the money side of things, I remember talking to Dr. LaTanya Sweeney. She was the first Black woman to get a computer science degree from MIT. She was also on my PhD committee, and she had a student doing this project of looking at SAT prep services and their prices. And they saw that for zip codes that had a higher, over the average of Asian residents, they were being charged more for test prep services, right? So these algorithms of exploitation. Now, when it comes to love, I was procrastinating my PhD, and I went on this this dating app, and it required facial recognition to get there. So I upload one photo. It's an artistic photo profile, whatever, and it didn't detect my face. So I was like, okay, it's because of the type of photo. So then I did another photo looking straight at the camera, right? Still didn't detect my face. So once I realized I was messing with people's love lives, that's when I went straight back.
People are gonna listen.
I was like, okay, we really have something here. But all of these different areas in which, for that, I'm talking love, but even our connections and our communities, who's following you.
Yeah,
right?
Your personal relationships are so mediated by these things now too. Every dating app is driven by an algorithm that sorts people into matching with each other. Like whose Instagram stories you see most often are a choice that Instagram makes for you based on what you engage with. I mean, which emails you see, who's seeing your posts on Facebook, it's all so filtered that it's not necessarily what you organically want, but it's like this weird technological mirror reflection of what the platform wants to show you and how the platform interprets your behavior.
Yeah.
It's just so deep at this point. It's quite
in our lives so much.
Yeah.
And one of the things that are in our lives is like ChatGPT, right? You have like people using it to write emails, all like respond to people. Your text is like, you know.
the predictive text.
The predictive text. But this is something I learned when I was doing this reporting on AI, hallucinations. And I really, really like this, and I kind of want to go through this before we kind of get to hope. Kyle, do you want to talk about an AI hallucination?
Yeah, I mean, a hallucination is essentially an error of the artificial intelligence. Though the error is so baked in, it's like part of the nature of the thing itself. It's when an AI comes up with an answer to something or generates a result that is just completely wrong and irrelevant. In experimenting with ChatGPT myself, I was struggling with an article, and I was like, maybe ChatGPT will help me find an example of this. So I was like, ChatGPT, can you find me an example of, Russian folklore that has to do with an automaton or some kind of robot? Like, surely there's something.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT kept giving me stories and fairy tales and examples of these Russian folktales. But then every time I tried to chase down the source of them, it turned out they did not exist. And it would give me, this was where my mind was blown. It would give me fake URLs, fake PDFs, like fake book titles. It would say, no, this is absolutely real. Just go look at this book. And the book was also not real. And so, I mean, I have not used ChatGPT much for my work because I am a journalist who has to get facts right. But that just showed me not manipulative, but just like blatantly false these results could be.
And even just thinking about hallucinations, it's a fancy way of saying BS.
Yeah.
Right? It elevates it to another place, which is good for marketing. Humans hallucinate.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, oh, okay.
Just lie.
Right. So I think I push back even on it's making things up that are not factual. And this is critical when you have chat systems being used to give people information about where to vote. So if you get the wrong place to vote, this is misinformation, disinformation. So I think hallucination as a way of framing it doesn't really give the gravity, right? If you're reaching out to try to find information about benefits or healthcare and you're getting the wrong information. It's not like, oh, it's hallucinating, having this mystical experience, and,
And yet it can be so persuasive in its hallucinations.
Yeah.
Like, it'll tell you exactly where to go.
Right.
Well, as a computer scientist, like, how is this BS happening?
Well, so right now it's like spicy autocomplete. It's predicting the next word. And so just like we're talking about this illusion, right? It's like, oh, this is what a citation looks like. This is what a URL looks like. Let me present one. Or when people talk like journalists, they have this form. And so it's going back to the pattern recognition, right? So these neural nets are learning the patterns of communication without the context of understanding. You put in enough deep neural networks, you put in enough data, and it can be very convincing, just like a mediocre person who doesn't really have the credentials talking about something they don't know, but they sound confident. And if you don't know, you might agree with them. And that's what's happening in these cases. So they're not thinking. Spicy autocomplete.
Spicy autocomplete.
I got that from Dr. Ruman Chandri, and it always stuck in my head because I thought it was a great way of describing it.
I love it. You just hit me with that mediocre person. I'm gonna push back a little with the unfiltering. I'm gonna go there, the filter world. You talk about, Kyle, like how it's affecting our culture and like, generic coffee houses around the world, playlist suggestions. I just complained about my 20 songs on Spotify. But like, I also, in academia, felt very out of place because of like culture was like high culture and like everyone was reading books that I wasn't reading and everyone was like watching the shows I wasn't watching and I was watching like X-Men, you know? And so like, what do you say to like kind of the pushback that yes, algorithms are kind of pushing all this, it is capitalism, but some of it, like a little ounce, I'm not saying all of it, some of it shows me stuff that I actually enjoy. And some of it shows me that maybe it's okay to like these things that are not already kind of in this high culture. I work at NPR, so I mean, like, I get it, but, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. I think the internet evolved in such a way that algorithmic recommendations were really necessary. Like, there's so much content on the internet, particularly in the social media era. Everyone, like, we're all posting Instagrams, we're all posting on Twitter. There has to be some kind of sorting mechanism that shows you something that you might be interested in, because you're not always going to know how to look for that.
Yeah. And unknown artists and stuff like that.
Right. You can find new artists, you can find new music, you can find a new television show that you didn't know existed.
Right.
And I've found so many great recommendations and new ideas from these feeds. But I think the problem has been really in the latter half of the 2010s, these feeds and digital platforms became more and more algorithmic. So it was not just a little bit of recommendation, they just took over your entire feed. They took over everything that you were seeing. Like what I was trying to seek in the book was what is the right balance of filtering versus seeking out. Like, I think the main problem that we're experiencing, at least in culture, is discovery. Like, this question of how do you find the next musician you like, the next book you like, anything like that. And right now, discovery is way too algorithmic, and there's too much automation. It's too driven by the incentives of advertising or the tech company's profit. And I just want to make the argument for a little more of that human discovery and like human to human communication about what you're interested in.
Right.
Like, I mean, even thinking back to the social media of a decade ago or the early 2010s, it was much more conversation driven. It was about us like talking to each other and creating this like atmosphere online together.
About Donkey Kong.
About Donkey Kong and
Tony
niche
Hawk.
anime
Tony Hawk.
from the
Cheat codes,
90s.
unlimited.
Yeah.
And so now I think I just want to get back to like a better balance and encourage people to like recommend things to each other. And when you find something meaningful, you should tell your friends about it, not just like repost it online.
Yeah. And along with that hope, Joy, Dr. Joy, you were talking about how like you have the facial recognition and after your master's thesis and like the, you know, the documentary that you're in and all this stuff.
Coded Bias.
Coded Bias.
Netflix.
You actually put pressure on like big companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and they claim to get better and change things. So like, what do you think needs to be done to kind of combat a lot of this stuff?
Well, they actually stopped selling facial recognition to law enforcement, which I thought was huge.
Yeah.
Right. And part of that experience for me was showing the importance of sharing our stories. So for me, when I had that white mask experience, it wasn't the first time computers hadn't detected my face. When I was an undergrad working on robots in Georgia Tech, Atlanta in the house, whoop, whoop. My robot wouldn't detect. I was trying to play peekaboo with a robot that couldn't see me. That just did not work out, right? And then I've been told, so I went to Hong Kong, right? So I wasn't in China in the same kind of way. But I remember going there for an entrepreneurship contest. And there I met another robot, Autumn. It was a healthcare robot. And the creators wanted to do a demo. So I was over here trying to do a demo with Autumn. Autumn also couldn't detect me. So I put on my engineering hat and we started talking shop, and it turned out we were using the same code base.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was a code base that had come from MIT, that had come from Cynthia Brazil, who had inspired me as a young girl. And so just seeing the spread of technology and how quickly bias in one context could shift to another really pulled me into doing this sort of research.
Yeah. So what would you want people to take away? Like first, Dr. Doi, you first, but like from your book, like what can we do? How do we fight? Like what are the things would you like somebody to take from your book?
That our stories matter. If you have a face, you have a place in the conversation about AI. You don't need all the degrees from MIT or wherever, and that's why I love the story of the Brooklyn tenants that I share. Everyday people pushing back on harmful uses of AI or trying to create something better. I talk about Avery Smith, whose wife died of stage 4 melanoma. With people with darker skin, it's often detected much later. And oftentimes these data sets don't include dark skin. And so it relates to some of my research with data with face recognition, but this applies to so many areas. So he started something called Melalogic, right, which wasn't just about creating more diverse data sets, but also making sure people had access to healthcare practitioners that looked like them, that they felt comfortable with as well, but that clinicians were also learning different ways different health conditions manifest. I think of a company called Bloomer Tech. They saw that less than a quarter of research participants for cardiovascular disease are women. And so this means so much of the AI that's being created in the healthcare space is based on male body models that don't necessarily work for other populations. But with this insight, they're starting to close these data gaps. And so that's why I'm excited about what's to come, because when we address our limitations, that's how we actually reach the aspirations of what we have for AI.
Thank you. And Kyle, what do you think? What do you want people to take away from Filter World?
I feel like similar to Dr. Joy, it's this like, you want people to have a sense of agency, to know that there are ways to talk back to these systems that we're interacting with all the time, to use your habits and your practices when you're online in a different way to lead to a different outcome. So for me, I think I wanted the book to speak to our experiences on the internet right now and the sense that I have, and I think a lot of people have, that it just kind of sucks a little bit more than it used to. And that, you know, it can feel boring, it can feel dull, it can feel not stimulating and not creative enough. And I wanted to show that this was not just an organic consequence of humans making decisions, it was a consequence of the kinds of technologies that drive the internet and the ways that digital distribution mechanisms like algorithmic recommendations have taken over how we consume culture. And I think by the end of the book, what I really hope that people get is like, it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to just consume passively what's on your feed. You don't have to let these content recommendations drive what you're seeing all the time. You can kind of choose to step off that pathway. Or like, if the feed is the highway, you can just get off anytime and go wander around in the woods somewhere else anytime you want. You can type in a random URL to your browser. You can try a new platform. There's just, I think the way to start building a better internet and a better culture for ourselves online is to move away from these spaces that we've become really habituated to and just start trying new things, finding interesting stuff, supporting voices that you find cool. And I hope that's like, that inspires me at least. I keep coming back to this metaphor of a farmer's market for culture or for content. Like for so long we've had Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, which are like giant malls off the highway. But if we had something more like a farmer's market where you were going directly to an artist, to a musician, paying for their work, supporting them, interacting with them directly, I think that would build a better culture, and it's very possible on the internet today.
Yeah. I like that metaphor. And we're going to end with some art, because you are a poet.
Some days. They
Some
call me a
days.
poet of code.
I'm going to let you read it from your book, because then they can see your book. But I did type it out. I did type out their poem. But I wanted to end on this poem, and then you'll take mine.
I'm gonna take the risk and see if you typed it out.
Yeah, I'm just really worried that like there's a typo. We'll see.
We'll see. Okay. So this one is called Unstable Desire. prompted to competition. Where be the guardrails now? Threat in sight, will might make right. Hallucinations taken as prophecy. Destabilized on a middling journey to outpace, to open chase, to claim supremacy, to reign indefinitely. Haste and paste, control altering deletion. Unstable desire remains undefeated. The fate of AI, still uncompleted. Responding with fear, responsible AI beware. Prophets do snare, people still dare to believe our humanity is more than neural nets and transformations of collected muses, more than data and errata, more than transactional diffusions. Are we not transcendent beings bound in transient forms? Can this power be guided with care, augmenting delight alongside economic destitution? Temporary band-aids cannot hold the wind when the task ahead is to transform the atmosphere of innovation. The android dreams entice, the nightmare schemes of vice. Thank you.
I did it.
Yes, there was one spot.
There was fun. You'll tell me later. I want to thank you, Kyle, Dr. Joy, for talking to me, and we're going to take some questions after, but let's give them a round of applause. They're amazing.
Thank you.
We will take some questions, if you have any. No questions. No, just
It's the best part.
yeah, it is. I
It is
agree.
the best part.
I'm short, sorry. Hi, I'm
Never
a
be sorry for being sorry.
I'm a librarian, and one thing I study misinformation, disinformation, so I find both your books very fascinating. One thing I find really frustrating about the tech sector, especially AI, is the lack of interdisciplinary contact. They're making on new systems of searching and discovery, and I don't see a lot of librarians involved, and I see a lot of students and patrons going to ChatGPT to find books that don't exist, and it's really hard to explain to them the difference between AI and a stochastic parrot, which another researcher has called them. How do you recommend we make AI more how do we intercept these kind of tech sectors that are kind of determined to keep us out because we're not from those backgrounds that are the same as them?
Oof, I don't know.
It's a great question. I mean, tech companies have such a history already in the past decade of like forcing out the human element. Like they do not value library scientists. They don't value curators. They don't value editors. They don't value journalists. Like these companies are driven to automate everything that they possibly can. And I don't know, I mean, I see some hope in like smaller nonprofits or smaller like startups that function differently where some like library science is at the center or some kind of human intelligence is at the center. And I hope like if we support those and we gravitate toward those better platforms or better systems, then that becomes more of a priority. But I mean, why Facebook is not the largest employer of library scientists in the universe, I don't know. I wish it was.
Do you have anything to add, Dr. Joy?
I think it's so important to make sure we don't fall into monocultures, which you're speaking to, because there's so many people who think ChatGPT is AI. That's just one product from one company. And so I think it's so important that we make sure we're investing in truly open source options where it isn't the monopoly that we continue to see with big tech. And I think that means you have to look into places like DC where there is legislation that comes into place because we've seen what self-regulation looks like. It looks like consolidation. It looks like at times monopoly and so forth. I think it's also important to have technologists who embrace the arts and the humanities. This is why yes, I have the technical background, but I also make sure to present the poet of code side with the work that we do to say it takes all of us, all aspects of us. And so when it comes to that mission to protect what is human is making sure that we always remember that the heart of computing is humanity, and that means us.
Thank you.
Right over here.
Is this on? I really appreciated the multidisciplinary start that you had with the arts.
Oh, thank you.
I Joy, you do evocative audits, and especially AI, Ain't I a Woman, which was played at the Kennedy Center. You could hear a pin drop, but it had a lot of technology in it. And so the ideas of hard engineering and including the whole problem, it seems very important. And I wonder if you might talk a little bit about why doing an evocative audit helps include more of us. And also, I'd love if you would show your jacket to people.
All good. Also, this is Megan Smith, the best ever Chief Technology Officer of the United States, served under the Obama administration. And so much here to learn from her. This notion of the evocative audit comes back to that first question, really, in terms of allowing people to bear witness to the limitations of AI, but also using art in critique and art in expression, saying it's still back to the human touch at the end of the day. So in that poem, I have a line that goes, "Can machines ever see my queens as I view them? Can machines ever see our grandmothers as we knew them?" And it has the historical context. Ida B. Wells, data science pioneer, hanging facts, stacking stats on the lynching of humanity, teaching truths hidden in data, each person worthy of respect. And I think it really comes back to how are we respecting our individual stories? We're not just data subjects to be gleaned, to be filtered to extract money from. We have an essence as human beings.
We have 5 minutes, so we might not get to all questions, sorry.
Okay, I'm a physician, a cardiologist, and to what Kyle was saying, I have tested ChatGPT to see if it's real or not, and most of the time it's not. So I know the answer to that, and so I can verify it, and I don't know how many of our patients are looking at that. But in the field of psychology, I read an article that more people are using ChatGPT than seeing a counselor, and they're using it for mental health. So I'm wondering if there is any kind of governing body that is looking at that, because that's huge,
Yeah, I did a piece a while back on those personal chatbots that startups are offering, where it is like, a companion or a therapist or a, fake girlfriend, and they become so intimate in people's lives that I truly do think it's like that deep psychological relationship as with the therapist. And right now, those startups are operating with impunity. Like there is nothing stopping them from getting customers, from taking money from people. They don't necessarily have doctors working with them to ensure best practices. And I know people are looking at it, like there is regulation that is trying to be developed, but I mean, look at what happened with social media. There's barely been any regulation in the 15 years that it's been mainstream. So unfortunately, I don't have a ton of hope. But maybe in more of like an FDA context or a medicine context, that could happen faster. But if that kind of stuff, if ChatGPT is treated like social media, then I don't have much hope for the government stopping
Dr. Joy.
this.
Yeah, well, I will say this is why it's important that we push back on things like hype or don't describe AI as thinking when we're engaged in these sorts of illusionary conversations with a machine. And I think about NEDA, National Eating Disorder Association. They bought into the hype. They're like, okay, we can replace people with the chat bots. They had call center, and they decided, okay, they're starting to unionize. Let's fire them and replace them with the chat bot. So I think I saw the headline. It was a Monday, right? National Eating Disorder fires their workers, right, and replaces it with chatbot. I think by Saturday, the headline was chatbot shut down. Why? It turned out the chatbot they were using was actually giving maybe a hallucination, information that's known to make eating disorders worse.
Oh.
And here it wasn't the power of AI, it was the power of the belief in the AI hype, right? That led the decision makers to think this very important work, this very human work, right? That's not easily replicable with just the pattern recognition situation. It is a relationship you're developing with care and knowledge, could be so easily replaced. And so I offer that as this kind of example of why it's important we're sober with the true limitations and capabilities of these systems as well. And I also think the tech companies and the developers of these systems have a responsibility to say what is out of use, right? So because sometimes you get context collapse. This thing was trained on maybe Netflix recommendations or reviews, and now it's being used in a case it was never even developed for.
It's trained on Reddit replies, and now it's giving people
pray not.
life advice.
It might not be the one.
Yeah.
First, congratulations on, I think, the best session we've had in the festival. So
What? Thank you.
I thought you were gonna say best outfit because I didn't wear this for no reason.
The White House has issued an executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthiness of AI.
Yes.
That's helping us mature the practice. But simultaneously, the White House Office of Science and Technology is pushing quantum computing. How do you see these two marrying up without it going incredibly explosive?
Can I answer that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
When I think quantum computing, I think more about the science that is really used for. So like we can actually investigate, Einstein's general relativity with quantum computing. Like we can actually measure gravitation to centimeters of gravitational waves and the fabric of space. So when I think quantum computing, I think of this push for scientific endeavors. Now, I don't know anything about quantum computing when it comes to algorithms, so you go ahead.
One, you were talking about the executive order. So last summer, I remember, and I write about this in the book, in the epilogue, I was invited to a conversation with President Biden in San Francisco. So it was President Biden, Governor Newsom, and his perfect hair,
Yeah.
and then me, and a few other experts. And I really have to credit the Biden-Harris administration for putting AI on the agenda, right, with this executive order, but also the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy under Alondra Nelson. They came out with this AI Bill of Rights, right? And so that we should have a right to safe and effective systems. We should be protected from algorithmic discrimination. There should be a notice, and privacy. How many people, for example, know that you can opt out of face scans at the airport?
I did not.
Now, this is why I have this whole opt-out club situation, because you're supposed to know you have an option, but oftentimes there are these false choices and sometimes coercive consent that is happening. So when I see the executive order and when I see the memo from OMB, for example, these are all positive moves, but we still don't have comprehensive federal legislation when it comes to AI. We see that Europe is moving a bit further, right, with the EU AI Act. So I think there's still a long way to go. As to quantum, that's not my area.
I think I got quantum computing mixed up with quantum physics lab where they're doing other stuff at NASA Goddard, so I apologize. Did you want to add anything?
Just very briefly, the European regulations in the EU and the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act, they're really targeting data. They are allowing users to opt out of being surveilled and their data tracked, and also opting out of algorithmic recommendations. So I think those laws are are a good way forward. Like if we can regulate at the level of the individual and what's getting contributed and can be used by these systems, then we can kind of influence the upstream effects of them.
Great
you.
question.
I think I got 2 questions left, so it's going to be you and you. I am so sorry.
Do you think it's possible to balance the development of critical thinking skills with increased access and utilization to algorithms in education and at younger ages, particularly when not being technologically fluent could be a disadvantage?
I think when it comes to developing critical thinking, you can use so many different kinds of tools. So AI happens to be the tool right now, but I think it's really easy to succumb to the sexy new introduction for the core ideas or skills we're trying to develop. One thing I've been thinking about is this notion of an apprentice gap, right? Where we automate away so much of the critical thinking that's necessary. So maybe for your entry-level job, you're doing a lot of work that seems like grunt work, but it turns out you need that base level skill to go on that ladder to mastery. So if you never actually gain mastery, we're living in the age of the last masters. And so I think it's really important to critical thinking skills and other skills that we think about that separate from technology. Just what kind of humans do we want to be creating in the first place? And what are the conditions we can create around that? And then you can look at the tools available, but knowing that technology is not the savior or the answer.
Yeah, journalism.
Yeah, I mean, it actually makes me think of our discussion of Tony Hawk and Donkey Kong, because I feel like my critical thinking skills came from video games a lot. Like honestly, when I think of how I learned to think about stuff, it was from Legend of Zelda.
I was about to say Zelda puzzles.
Like, yeah, so
Zelda puzzles.
puzzle solving,
quest.
finding solutions to things, trying different answers. So I think like we always figure out ways to train ourselves and to learn, and we learn new things through new devices. But it is like you have to develop responsible technology for it.
Regarding social media algorithms being more conversational in the beginning and having become more AI and internal algorithms now, and people kind of wanting a return back to human-led discovery, do you see these companies trying to develop technology and algorithms to give the illusion of human-led discovery while still primarily relying on tech?
That's a great question, and I feel like you do see like the giant tech companies kind of faking it. Like particularly lately, there was this kind of meme or trend maybe 6 or 8 months ago where people were like, Google search is so bad, but I've fixed it by adding Reddit to all of my search queries. So people would say, you know, best omelet recipe Reddit to find human answers. And now Google, seeing that, has now automated the addition of Reddit and is highlighting more Reddit answers and has actually licensed all of Reddit's content to train AI. So it's like they want to digest the human element and then spit it back to you in an automated way. I wish that there was more of the giant social media companies doing more human curation, but they really are not. Like where I see that changing is the much smaller platforms like a Substack or a Discord or Bandcamp even, these like smaller scale platforms where you do have human staff making recommendations, building playlists, where you can buy an album from a band directly. And I see the desire for it, like people tell me about that desire all the time. And I think the tech giants are just so monopolistic and have so much power that they think they can just ignore users' unhappiness.
Oh, wow.
I think you covered it. But one thing that I do think about is this notion of agency. So often it feels like tech is happening to us. There's nothing we can do to resist, or we just have to accept the defaults and so forth. So that's why with the Algorithmic Justice League, we do different kinds of campaigns. Earlier this year, we did a creative rights campaign for artists, thinking about the 4 C's of consent, compensation, credit, and control. Right now, we're doing a campaign with the airport face scans. If you go to fly.ajl.org, you learn that you actually have choice. This is the one place where you can vote for your biometric rights by saying, No, because there's so many other places where things are just curated for you, and it's also an opportunity for collective resistance. And so I think finding those moments and places for agency remains important. And no, I do not think the tech companies will be incentivized to do the right thing. I think they will observe human behavior and monetize it.
Thank you. And I want to give them a round of applause one more time.